Hello. Well, first of all, I have to introduce my Kekistani refugee friend here. I'm doing my bit for looking after the displaced. And now to business. I suppose some of you will have realised I've spent time as a professional writer. I've spent time associating with professional writers. And as a university teacher, I've spent time correcting the work of people who think they're writers. And I've noticed something about writing. It's a window directly into the soul of the author. The best authors manage to hide it, but not many people do. And that's why I was so surprised to discover that JK Rowling was a supporter of the Labour Party in the UK. Because if you study her books, in which an elite secretly directs the fate of a lot of ignorant masses, and in which a political correct idiocy embodied in the Ministry of Magic's repellent Dolores Umbridge has taken over good governance and is crippling it. You can see Rowling is very well aware of the problems of PC and socialism. It leaks out in almost every sentence of her work. But in real life, well, she seems to have completely lost it. With more dexterity than any of her wizarding characters, she's managed to turn herself from being a respected author into a US Democratic Party shill and a purveyor of news so fake that CNN held a 2-minute silence out of respect for a master. I should think you're well acquainted with the story, but for the benefit of any recent escapees from Azkaban, I shall go over the main points. Someone cropped a video in such a way that Donald Trump appeared to be ignoring a small boy in a wheelchair while he shook hands with everyone else. The missing bit was Trump shaking hands with the kid the very moment he came into the room. Seeing this calumny, Rowling immediately flew off the handle and immediately started projecting as much inaccurate shit as a North Korean rice production forecast. Listen, honey, do try to remember this. A closed mouth gathers no feet. She also, by the way, repeated the lie that Trump had imitated a disabled reporter. I can forgive her for making a mistake about a misleading recent video, but there's no excuse for her retailing that Kowalewski story, which has been at the very least seriously called into question by many YouTube analyses. So, having been called out on her ignorant nonsense, at the stuff about not shaking the child's hand at any rate, she then tweeted an apology in which she said she was sorry to the family of the little boy, but she said nothing about passing on a complete lie about the American Commander-in-Chief. I can only draw to your attention Rowling's quote of Maya Angelou, who said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them." And now I'll go on to what I consider the more important issue, and it's this. Every time someone on the left passes on an obvious lie about someone in the Trump administration, usually Trump himself, of course, what's up with this? Nah. There's a big fuss, and then amongst the middle ground or the detached, like me for instance, there's a lot of sympathy for the target of the lie. Usually Trump, of course, with a concomitant atrophy of attention devoted to the problems which are inevitable in an administration headed by a narcissist on work experience who's learning how to be a politician on the job. For instance, it hasn't escaped anyone's notice over here in the UK that President Trump seems to get up in the morning and decide who his next sacking victim will be on the basis of how sour his breakfast orange juice is. And yet everyone is distracted by a big fuss about a big lie concerning a little boy. So I started to wonder why the left are doing this. It seems very counterintuitive. But wait. I think it was Carl Jung who said that if a patient repeated a pattern of destructive or irrational behaviour for which even he could not furnish a reason, then the only way to work out what he is trying to do is to study the outcome. And the outcome of the behaviour of the left at the moment seems calculated to strengthen Trump's position. It actually looks like they want him to gain in popularity and strength. So is that exactly what they do want? After all, that way illegal immigration can be cut down, labour laws might be set in place which mean you won't have to give the maid a higher salary, that embarrassing Obamacare thing might be scrapped, a whole load of potentially murderous Muslims are being stopped at the gates, and America is taking less nonsense internationally by sticking up for the currently unfashionable America First idea. And all this can be done without a single ripple disturbing the smooth pool of oily self-satisfaction and moral superiority which lies at the sump, at the lowest levels of every lefty's soul. It's the perfect get-out-of-jail-free card. I can see that Trump's up for a second term, and when he wins, it'll be the left who put him there. As Margaret Thatcher once said, it's a funny old world, isn't it?